morning, everybody. Welcome to Roots at Home. It's really amazing to have so many of you online with us today and to go through some of the gardening things as our season approaches us. And it's really beautiful to have a sunny day also to be thinking about gardening and put us in the right frame of mind. My name is Erin. I work here at Roots to Harvest, which is where I am this morning. And I just want to really acknowledge the land that Roots to Harvest lives and works and grows and recreates and cares for as being the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people through Fort William First Nation and the Robinson Superior Treaty of 1850. And we at Roots think about land a lot. We think about our place on land and our stewardship of it, and feel so thankful for the knowledge keepers and elders who have come before us and continue to work with us now today here at Roots to show us the best way to look after this beautiful land that we live on Turtle Island. Before I get started, I'm going to hand it over to Corey, who is from the Digital Media Productions at Confederation College, to just go through some of the technical things and let you know a little bit how this all works. Go for it.
Hey, hello everybody. Thank you all for joining us today. We're happy you're here. So I just wanted to say this is brought to you by Roots to Harvest, and it's in collaboration with us. We're from the Digital Media Production Program at Confederation College. And so this is a Confederation College student enterprise. And I just have a few quick notes about questions. So we will be taking questions throughout the demonstration. You can either feel free to send a chat message in Zoom and I will relay it to Erin, or you can raise your hand and we will get to you and I will let you know when it's your turn and you can talk. So just keep your hand raised until we get to you. We'll do our best to get to all the questions. And aside from that, I just ask that you stay muted until I unmute you and let you know it's your turn. And otherwise, just enjoy the demonstration. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Corey. And now you get to see my chin because I forgot to take off my mask, but this is better because maybe I'm not so muffled either. Okay, so there's a bunch to go through and I'm going to try to wrap everything up in a tight bundle of about an hour. If you need to come and go, feel free. If you have questions as I'm going through something, then just ask it, like put it in the chat or raise your hand with that little like button thing. For those of you who have kits, I want to address one thing first of all. So in your kit, you have this special thing from the Dollarama that we're going to start our tomatoes in. I want to suggest that you open it up now and add water. So it took about half an hour for mine to absorb, and I'll show you what that looks like from here. Where am I showing this to my friend? There you are. So that's what it looks like. That was about 2 cups of water that I added. So that's what I would do is I would open up your package, get your water in it, and we'll come back to that. But I want that ready for when we're there. All right. So for those of you who didn't get that, we'll talk through what this is in a little bit. Things we're going to go through today are choosing seeds, starting seeds, what kind of soil medium to start seeds in, and what kind of light you need. And then I really want to talk about, this is a common question about what we should start indoors and when, and what you can just put right in the ground, which is totally possible with many of our things too here in Thunder Bay. And then I want to address any questions you have too, if there's specific ones. And I have to say, I am not an expert gardener by any means. And I have a feeling that there are some like rogue master gardeners online here. There always is, no matter where I do a garden presentation, there's always like, oh, actually it's gardened for 15 years and, you know, have a master's degree in horticulture. I'm just coming to learn. But so if somebody else has information that is like different or better, feel free to put it in the chat, because I think this is a great community to learn from also. With that said, maybe I'll ask Corey to put up the first poll and we'll see if it works. And it's just about what kind of, how much experience do you have gardening? And we'll see if, yeah, you can just sort of click on where it is. Oh, nice, we can see people coming in. And no doubt COVID has, and the pandemic has really inspired a new wave of gardeners that have come onto this way of growing food. And it's really like, you know, if that's a positive outcome, I'll take it. Yeah, so maybe just 5 more seconds and then we'll share the results with you. I can't totally see them here, but where are people mostly there, Corey?
So we have 39% with no experience, about 30 with 1 to 2 years, only 10% in the 3 to 4 year range. And then 5 years and more, we have 23% of the audience.
Amazing.
So we got a pretty good spread and
Cool.
a lot of
So let's
new
end that
people.
poll, and then I think we can share the results with them. So there you are, the 25% of you in there that have like gardened for a long time. Well done. And I'm excited that there's some people who have no experience on here too. So we'll talk about this, as we go through. And again, just keep on asking questions. So if you had got a kit, and many of you did, and I have to say, like, if you didn't get a kit, the cost of all this stuff was probably about $10. Like the soil is a little bit different because you buy it in a bigger quantity, but anyway. So what we have in your kit is you have your pot that we're going to start our greens in for your indoor edible planter. I didn't give you one of these. I just took one of these from the kitchen because I'm always stealing stuff from the kitchen. Kim hates me for it, but you want to put something under it because when you water it, it's gonna, so like a plate or something like that can go underneath. You have 4 packs of seeds in your kit. I chose for you some spinach, some lettuce, and some kale. And then you also have a tomato variety. You might not have the same varieties as I have here in front of me, but that's fine. That's totally fine. And the reason you have this variety of seeds, or this brand of seeds, is Roots to Harvest gets donated these seeds often from some of the supermarkets around when they're done with them, when they come off their shelves. We didn't get any donated last year because you all bought them all. Like the world bought seeds, like there was seeds never going to come again. So these were all donated to Roots to Harvest, and that's why we're putting them out to you. It's pretty affordable for us to do that. And then the other thing you have is just, again, this is just from Dollarama. You can also get them from, like any of the garden centers, like the small scale garden centers that are more local, or our big box store garden centers, but just Jiffy pots. I think they call them Jiffy pots. So you have that as well. And then you have a bag of Pro Mix, which I'll talk about. And I've also put in a little handful of worm castings in there, which I'll also talk about. So maybe I'll talk about that now, actually, because that's what we're going to do right now. So if you have a kit, and again, if you don't, then just listen and ask questions, and just think about your own. But we're going to open up our bag of soil here, and you'll notice it's very dry. So the things in this soil are peat moss, a lot of peat, and vermiculite. So the little white things are vermiculite, or perlite, I think is another name for them, or like another kind of vermiculite. And basically what this soil medium, we use a thing called Pro Mix. We buy them in big, huge, we call them like a bale, is that it holds water and it just gives something for the roots to get started in. It's not one of those ones that has a whole bunch of different nutrients in it. I'll show you what one of those looks like. I'm just going to pull it up here. So this is not Pro Mix, but this is something you'll find at garden centers. We just bought this, I think, at Canadian Tire. It's like an organic potting soil, and it comes with like, organic fertilizer or compost in it. And it's also fine to use, but a lot of times your seeds don't need that right away. They don't need all the fertilizer right away. That's more for like if you want to start a little herb pot that's already like transplanted herbs. So the other thing I've put in here, so there's about 5 big scoops of Pro Mix in here. And then I put a little scoop of worm castings, just because eventually in our edible pot, they're gonna need nutrients. And we really like worm castings because they're natural, they're organic. And these ones are from a guy in town, or I think it's a family in town, who just started this business called The Good Earth. And I think there's a number of stores carrying it. We sell it at Roots to Harvest online at our store. They come in 1 and 3 and 6 kilogram bags, so you can always go and order some. I use them in my own garden. Oh, I just like knocked my mic. But I use them in my own garden for side dressing my plants, for just supplementing my soil before I plant. And you don't need very much of it. So I'll show you what this looks like to this camera here. It's very dry looking. It's not wet. So what they've done is there it is. So they've screened it. The worms have gone through, they've turned it into, like we call it castings to be fancy, but it's just poo. And then it's been dried out and screened. Worm castings have so much natural nutrients and a thing called auxins, which are growth hormones, but they're natural. So anyway, so I put a handful in there, but what I need to do before I put this in my pot is wet it down a little bit. So I stole some water from the drainage ditch beside Roots to Harvest because our water is turned off right now because that's how life happens sometimes. And I'm just gonna put a scoop of water right into my bag because I think it's a little bit cleaner. So I'm gonna put a scoop of water into my bag and then I'm just gonna start working that in. And I'm gonna start, because if you just add your soil right to this and try to add water, this first, it seems like it's repelling water until it starts having that, what, I don't know, it just starts like clinging, like the molecules start clinging together. So you want it to start clinging together. You don't want it to get too wet though. So I have a 3/4 cup because that's what I found. We can never find 1 cups in our kitchen. They're the first ones that go missing. All you cooks know what I'm talking about. But I'm mixing it up, getting it all done. You know, when I have, when I'm doing a lot of this, what I'll do is I'll put a bunch of my potting medium in a bin, add water, and just mix it up like that. So a bucket, a bin, whatever, and I'm gonna add my water before I do anything with it for planting. So I actually don't mind, whoops, the texture and feel of this, even just after that 1 cup. So often what you're going for is I'm gonna take this and just show again this camera, and you want it to hold its form. So I could probably add a bit more water. So as I squeeze it, I don't want water coming out, that's too wet. And I don't want it just like powdery in my hand. So this is pretty close. I'm quite happy with that. So I'm just gonna add a touch more water, not a full 3/4. I don't even know, like maybe I'm adding another 1/4 cup and I'm gonna work that in. This is a nice way to start your day, to just like feel some soil, to know that things are gonna grow here soon. For those of you who don't know, Thunder Bay, we are in zone, maybe we call it like 2B or 3A. There's all these growing zones across the whole world. So what that really means is we have a pretty cold growing climate. We have a lot of sunlight, which is really lovely, but our growing climate's pretty short, our growing season. So our last frost date, I think, is scheduled somewhere in early June. Like we could get frost as early as, or as late as like June 4th, June 5th. We could still wake up to frost in the morning, and you know it, like you remember those days, you're like, oh, frost and my tulips. And then we could get our first frost as soon as late August. And again, like, you know, it's like everything's going great. And then you look at the temperature and it's just like, shoot, it's going to get cold tonight. So we have about 90 frost-free growing days in our city. That's what we can kind of count on, like 90 days. And sometimes it comes early, like this year. I know that you're all like, I'm pretty sure I can get in my garden this weekend. I'm going to put some seeds in. Don't do it. We get teased and we get tricked and we get like tempted, but don't do it. So, and then, you know, and then all your things are growing so well, your garden's in like full bounty, and it's like August 28th, and you look at this and it's like, crap, it's gonna frost tonight. You gotta like cover everything up. So that's how it is. It's just what we get. We get a lot of other great things with this awesome climate we live in. I don't mind this. I like where mine's at. You decide for you. Does anybody want to show me their soil in their pictures? Like, what do you got? Is it holding its form? Is it feeling good? Do you need more water? Do you need less water? I see that. Okay, I see somebody. That looks really nice. That looks great. Okay, cool. You know what? I'm gonna add just a touch more. I'm gonna do a touch. It's funny. I mean, for this whole bag, I'm adding less water than I put in my Jiffy pots, which tells you how much water they absorb. Okay, I'm kind of at the end of mine. I like where I'm going here. So I am gonna dump my mixture, except for a little bit. I'm gonna leave a little bit left in the bottom of my Ziploc, because I'm gonna sprinkle that on top after I put seeds down. All right, I'm just gonna check my time here. So I'm gonna put this down in my pot. Don't pack it down. You're not like tucking it in for a tight sleep. Just get it in there. Leave a little bit in your bag. Level it out. Oh, that is pretty. And now that there's some water in your medium, when you go to water this again after, it's going to absorb the water. It's not going to bead up on top like it would have had you just put it in dry. So that's quite nice. I like that. I'm going to leave it just like that. And we're going to come back to that because I want to talk about seeds for a second here before we put seeds in. So not all seeds are created equal is what I want to tell you. We're creating an edible pot, and in Thunder Bay, again, like you need to think about if you want to. This could be inside near a window. This could be outside on your deck eventually when it gets warmer. But you are going to want to find a great place where it has some light for it. But not all things want to grow inside. So things that flower, they need more light. So anything like a tomato, a cucumber, a squash, like once it starts flowering, it's going to want more light. And doing that inside, just like with natural window light, is actually quite difficult to get it to fruit. You can do it with like fancy grow towers. We have some of those at work that have like the lights and stuff on them, but that's why we choose normally like herbs or greens to grow indoors or in these edible pots, because they don't flower, they're not producing fruit in that way. Yeah, and it's just an easy thing to do. The other thing about seeds is there's a lot of information on the back of your seed. So if you're looking at a seed packet, so some of you might have some in front of you, some of you just might know what I'm talking about. So there's a few things you want to consider when you're looking at seeds. And one is the description. So first of all, you should plant food that you want to eat, like that you are excited about eating. If you're like, okay, kohlrabi, I guess I'm planting kohlrabi, or like turnips, like, and no shade on people who like turnips and kohlrabi, but actually, like, if you don't feel like I'm gonna like love the day when I can fill this, then don't plant it. Just like buy that sometimes when your recipe calls for it at the store. You want to grow things you want to eat. In my garden at home, I want to grow things that my kids can eat without me like getting freaky about it. So I want them to like go and pick a bean or a pea or pull a carrot out of the ground and just do things that is kind of interesting and fun. I don't grow things at my house like broccoli, cauliflower, or cabbage. Actually, I did grow 2 cabbages last year and immediately regretted it. But because I mean, we grow all those things at Roots to Harvest, but I'm talking about like at home. Because one, they take up so much space, and I have 3 raised beds, and 2, you get 1 harvest from a broccoli. So you've put in, like, you've got it, you've started it indoors, you've transplanted it, and now it's like August 30th. You're like, okay, there's broccoli, and there's like this much broccoli. Here, family, and there's like everybody gets like a little floret. So obviously, I'm discouraging the broccoli, but you do you. If you love broccoli, you should do it, and I will cheer you on. They also have lots of pests like broccoli, cabbage, cauliflower, all those little cabbage worms. Love that stuff so much. Anyhow, and then what else? And then what you have space for, really, and like depending on your light. So when I'm looking at a seed package, I'm going to pick up my spinach one as an example. And I'm going to look at it. I'm going to like, oh, it's pretty. I like it. I eat spinach. This is perfect. And then I turn it over. I look at the back, and I'm checking for a few things. I'm checking for days to maturity, DTM, days to maturity. On this package of Burpee, it just says days. Same thing. So this one says 35 to 40 days. So I know in Thunder Bay, I've got 35 to 40 days of frost-free growing time. And actually, spinach is quite cold hardy. So great, I can grow that here. Like, I want something that's going to like fruit and come to harvest in my growing season. It tells me how deep to plant it. It tells me how much to space it with. It tells me to thin it. This one actually tells me it's container friendly. This is very handy. I didn't think about that when I picked it for this, but bravo, Burpee seed. Yeah, and it tells me how many seeds are in there. But then there's a description. So actually, hold on, before I go to the description, days to maturity. So this one is 35 to 40 days. Great. The tomato, and I think most of you have a variety that is pretty good for us. This one says 62 days to maturity. So we're in Thunder Bay. This is not a Thunder Bay days to maturity time. They're like, oh, you're in Vermont. Maybe you're in Etobicoke. I don't even know where that is. Like anything south of Wawa to me is Toronto. But either way, they are not thinking 62 Thunder Bay days. For me, I usually add about 2 weeks because it's cold here, because that's how things go. But I always try to find things that are 80 days or less on my days to maturity. That is not across the board. Like there are some things that like onions, for example, they all take longer than that. And also they're saying like, once you plant it in the ground, like you started your tomato or you bought your tomato plant and you put it in the ground, then it's going to fruit in this many days, you know, if all goes well. So I try to go for 80 days or less for my days to maturity, knowing that that means more than 80 days usually. And so that just, you know, there's just some things that are harder to grow here, or you have to find the right variety. And so like watermelon, we can grow watermelon, cantaloupe. We grew beautiful cantaloupe in roots last year, not in a greenhouse, just out in the field. And they did come to fruit. It was awesome. But they're like, you know, I forget what they're called, but they're like, I'm going to exaggerate. Obviously, that's what I do. But like, frost friendly Manitoba, you know, northern snowflake star cantaloupe. And it's just like, all it's trying to tell me is I grow in your cold climates. Like you might get a chance to see me as a fruit. So you need to decide, but things like that are actually quite fun to grow because it's just interesting. And growing like one thing like that in your garden every year, I think it's totally worth it just for the like wow factor if it works out. But I was talking about spinach, and then I want to talk about the description on the back. So the description on the back of this one says, plants produce tender, smooth, dark green leaves, perfect for both baby spinach and fully mature harvests. Rust resistant. So rust is like a type of disease you can get. Okay, so what I know is it's tender and smooth. I know the color of it. I know I can take it small or take it mature. One thing it doesn't say, actually, before I tell you what it doesn't say, because maybe y'all can notice what it doesn't say, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to read this bean one to you. This one says, a favorite among gardeners due in large part to its mouth-watering flavor. Pods grow profusely on tall vines. Use fresh or dried. Must be supported with trellis, fence, or with a bean tower. Anyway, what is the difference between those descriptions? What is one thing that the bean said that the spinach didn't? Does anybody know? Actually, this could be a prize opportunity. I have prizes for today. The prizes for today are, you can win a 3-kilogram bag of vermicompost, or you can win a variety pack of Superior Seed Producer seeds, or you can win Graham Saunders' short gardening season growing book, which is like a very limited edition because he only prints them once, like when we ask him to. Okay, so what did the bean say? Who put that?
Lori Lorenovich.
She said?
Flavor.
Flavor, Lori. Amazing. Lori, do you want the book, the seeds, or the vermicompost? Anyway, you type it. I'll let you know. Yeah, flavor. What does she want?
Compost.
Compost. Well done. Good choice. Not thinking ahead. Okay, so it talks about flavor. The beans are like, I taste good. The spinach are like, I'm dark green. So you need to like figure out, what are you growing for? I would be especially careful with like spinach is spinach. Honestly, you're gonna put a dressing on there, kind of who cares? But carrot, for example, the carrot's like, I store well, I grow quickly, I'm a bright orange, and I resist disease. Or this other carrot says, I grow quickly, I taste sweet, I don't store well, whatever. Like I'm probably going to pick the I taste sweet. If it doesn't mention flavor, it's probably because it's not well known for flavor. So don't buy it, is my suggestion. Like, again, buy whatever you want. Like, I didn't give you any choices. I just put stuff in. Tomatoes are similar. They'll say things like, what does this tomato say? Start indoors in a warm, well-lighted area 6 to 8 weeks before planting outdoors. 6 to 8 weeks. We're right on time today, April 17th. Sow seeds, blah, blah, blah. Keep moist. Like, there's nothing on this description about flavor. I'm really sorry. This is the variety I gave you. Some of them are like tomatoes, especially. We should talk about tomatoes for a second because tomatoes come in two kinds, determinate or indeterminate. So determinate means they grow to a certain height and stop. Indeterminate means they grow and they grow and they grow and they grow and they grow. And then you go to your garden, you're like, holy crap, like, what's the plant's name from the workshop, you know, Little Shop of Horrors? It just like takes over your garden. So I usually try to find determinate tomatoes that I know are going to stop. Even those ones get pretty jungly on me. I'm probably getting dirt all over my face, but I always want to pick tomatoes that have flavor. And I have my steadies. Like I grow Tiny Tims, or there's one, it's orange. It's called like a Sunkeeper or something. Again, it's a cherry tomato. I like cherry tomatoes for our growing climate. Unless like, you know, you're Italian, then I don't think any of the rest of us should grow beefsteaks. I think Italians should grow beefsteaks because they are just like, it's just in their bones to know how to grow a really beautiful tomato, and it's not in mine. So I grow cherry tomatoes for the most part, or like really small, like salad tomatoes. One that we grow at Roots to Harvest a lot. It's called a subarctic plenty. Notice the name, subarctic. It's like, this could basically grow in the, like, you know, with the penguins. So if you can't grow it, then it's on you. So yeah, anyway, look for flavor. So those are the things you're looking for. Are there any questions about seeds or seed starting? Is that a question on there, Corey?
There's a comment. She's saying she was never able to grow broccoli or cauliflower, and they did take up a lot of space.
It's not worth it. Just go to the store and buy broccoli and cauliflower. That's what you do with broccoli and cauliflower. And I'm going to say the same about Brussels sprouts. Everybody here at work would disagree. They love Brussels sprouts. I think they're a big pain in the butt, but I love them, you know, with bacon. So, okay. So that's the thing. The other thing about seeds is there's lots of different kinds. So, so there's an heirloom. You might see, this is an heirloom cucumber. Like I just pulled these out of, can you see this over here? Jessa on the side. Yeah, there. Oh, here we go. So that's like an heirloom variety. So what an heirloom seed is it's not crossed with another seed. So I think one of my ones was called a hybrid. Yeah. So my tomato seed, it talks about it being a hybrid. That means that there's two have come together. They've made this variety. If I save the seeds from my hybrid tomato, I get all geeky and I start saving seeds, which you should do because that's a good, like if you own the seeds, you own the food. But I won't get true to this tomato. Like chances are I'll get some other kind of like funky tomato. It'll still be a tomato, but it won't be like this exact kind because there's a hybrid. But if I save the seeds of this cucumber, then chances are high, if I did it right and it didn't cross because of like pollination and stuff, then I'll get this cucumber. So that's what an heirloom would mean, that they've like saved this seed so long, it's true to itself. It doesn't necessarily mean organic. Often it goes hand in hand, but it's not always the same thing. So yeah, anyway, this one's an excellent slicer and a great addition to salads and a tasty relish. So how could you say no? So that's and then the other thing you might see is organic. I'm just, again, showing you ones that are like garden center seeds. But this is organic cucumber. So, you know, it means it was grown organically, organic, you know, supplements and fertilizers were used for it. So that's good. Another thing that sometimes you see, this one's open, so I thought it would be a good one to show you, is some things like the really teeny tiny seeds that you can get them on seed tape. So when I'm planting with my like 9-year-old daughter, who, if any of you know my 9-year-old daughter, you know that this is a good option for her because she is a fun, crazy, wild spirit. And so the seeds are like already on this paper. So you just like open up this put it in your garden, sprinkle a little bit of soil on, water it, and that's all. You're not like going in and sprinkling and trying to put like your seeds down, little seeds at a time. So it's called seed tape. And they like, you can sometimes find it for carrots, often little lettuces. Yeah, and it's fine. Like it's already spaced on there for you. And then the paper around it, it's like a toilet paper roll of seeds. Really quite cool. Anyway.
I have a question for
Yeah.
you. So you said 6 to 8 weeks for planting before they go outside, which means now is a good time to start.
Yeah.
But with with the stores closing and it's hard to get access to the seeds, do we still have time? Or is it too late to wait until late May?
That is such a good question. Okay, so if you want to start your own seeds, now is a good time. With the stores closed, you can still do curbside pickup. It is hard to order seeds online. I mean, I'm going to keep on plugging our own, but there aren't tons of varieties left at Roots to Harvest. So there is a local organization called the Superior Seed Producers in Thunder Bay, and they are a collective of growers who have saved seeds from last year for sale for this year. So one of the prize packs is like, you know, peas, lettuce, corn. I think all the carrots are already sold out, but there's some squash, there's some flowers, and some zucchini. Later on, we are going to talk about what you can just put in your garden, like that you don't have to start inside. And then the other thing is I think garden centers are staying open. I don't know this for sure. They didn't talk about that specifically in the announcement yesterday. So if somebody knows, I mean, I'd be interested to find out. Curbside's still available, but you can always just buy transplants if you're not able to start them yourselves and put those in your garden, which is often, to be honest, what I do. Like I'm telling you, like start a seed planter. I don't do this at home because I am a #1 neglector of all things that need care in me. So I just go to the store and I buy my transplants. I go to Shannon Van Lent, the squash queen, and I buy transplants all the time because she is not a neglector. She grows really great plants, and so I buy them from her. But you should still start your own seeds because it's really fun to try. So I don't think it's too late. And everybody who's like, I texted my staff this morning saying, hey, does anybody have a tomato plant that I can just like borrow to show people like what it looks like? And they were like, no, no, no. And then one of my staff, Gavin, I totally naming him because it's funny, started his squash. He's like, I started my squash like 4 weeks ago. It's like, dude, you've worked here for 3 years. Like, I wouldn't even start squash indoors now for like 2 more weeks. Squash is so fast. You don't need to start them so soon. So we will talk about in a little bit what start indoors and outdoors, what to direct seed, those sorts of things. So I will come back to that. Okay, anyway, we have our soil. It's gonna like dry up if I keep on talking. Let's put some seeds in it. So you're gonna decide, like, I want spinach, lettuce, kale. Don't put your tomato seeds in this. Big no, don't do it. No. So this is for your greens. And like, so I'm gonna do, I can't even open it. Whatever, I'm gonna do, oh, can somebody pass me those scissors right there? Thanks, Kagan. Well, first I'm gonna do dental surgery if I wreck my teeth. I'm gonna do spinach and lettuce and a couple kale. I'm just gonna do them all. Thank you, my friend. And one thing is, we're not gonna worry about how many seeds right now, and we're not gonna worry about spacing. It doesn't matter because you are going to, when your seeds come up eventually, and everything is going great, and they've got like their first set of leaves, and they need the second set of leaves, you're gonna form a heart of ice, and you're gonna go in there, and you're gonna thin them out. You're gonna like clip out the little tiny babies that there's no room for. And it's like, this is the coldest, meanest thing you will do all spring, but it is like what you have to do to make sure the herd survives. So don't worry about spacing right now. You just worry about, like, you know, seeds are teeny tiny. It's not worth being like, okay, one spinach seed here and one here, one here. Just you, like, you know, for me, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just like divide it in thirds. I'm gonna say a third of this is gonna be spinach. Like, notice I'm not poking my finger in with little holes and making little divots. I'm just putting in some seeds. That's all I'm doing. I'm gonna put some spinach in here. I'm not worried about how many, and I'm not worried about spacing, and I'm not even trying to bury them, remember? So there's my spinach. Oh, no, sorry. That was my kale. Now I'm really messing you up. That was my kale. Now I'm going to add some spinach. That's going to be my middle of my planter. Up, 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 up. I'm just doing that because why not? Kale is one of those things too that you can start indoors like a tomato and then transplant it as a mature plant. I often do that. And when I say I often do that, I often buy that transplant from Shannon. And now I've got my lettuce. Ooh, a loose leaf blend. Delightful. Imagine a little tahini sesame dressing. It's like you're making the best salad right now. Oh, this is beautiful. Lettuce seeds are really nice. They're very papery thin. I'm just going to sprinkle a bunch of those in. The other cool thing about all these things we're putting in these little edible planters is they can all be harvested. You know, they don't have to come to full growth. You don't need to wait until you have full lettuce or full spinach or full kale. You just harvest them as little babies, pop them in some of your salad, add them to the side, impress somebody in your virtual world that this is what you did. So that's where I'm at. I just add my seeds on top. And now I'm going to go back to what I reserved in my bag here. And I'm not even going to use all of it because I probably reserved too much. And I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit on top. And I'm still not patting it down. I have not done the like, this, you know, I feel like I talk to kids all the time, just like, don't do it like that. I know that that's what they show you in like cartoons and stuff. Don't do it. But you're just going to sprinkle on top. This is your layer. That's why I didn't make the like divot, put the seeds in. That's my layer. These seeds don't need a lot of depth. If you put them down too deep, it's going to be too hard for them to germinate. So what we're doing right now is we're setting the stage for them to just germinate well. And germination, it doesn't even, you know, need a lot of light. To germinate, it needs some medium, it needs something to germinate into to like make its roots, and it needs water to activate it. Those are the cues it's going to take to say, oh yeah, like I've been this dormant, dry little like pot of potential for who knows how long. And now it's my turn. They like called me up. So, because I added the water and I'm gonna do the thing. So when they now start coming up, then I'm gonna start like worrying about light. So now that they're in there, I am gonna add a little bit of water to them. I just like, I mean, if you have any like, you know, whatever, like a little watering can, that's great. But now you see like my water is not pooling, it's absorbing. I'm not gonna add a ton and a ton. I used to grow with a grower from the Lakehead University greenhouse. Her name was Joan Lee, and she would call it like, it's too much love. It's like you're smothering them with love if you give them too much water. I just want a little bit of water in there. I'm not waiting for water to come out the bottom. That's way too much water. I just want that top layer to be a little bit wet. And that's it. Like, ta-da. That's all I'm gonna do with that. The next thing you wanna do is like, feel your pot. Like this is a good, I like the weight of mine. I don't know how to tell you how heavy it is, but it feels like, I can tell it's moist. And that's like, sometimes you're gonna be like, is it wet? Should I water it? I don't know. If you can just pick it up sometimes and be like, it feels dry or it feels moist. Like you'll be able to tell that stuff. The great thing about the medium that I've included for you is that it really holds water well. So it's not gonna dry out super fast and it's not gonna compact. If I were to use, remember that green bag I showed you for seeds? Sometimes that compacts so much, it's hard for those little tiny like baby sprouts to like come up. It's like a big weightlifter has to like lift that soil off. So this is like such a beautiful little home. I feel happy about what these are. Yeah, and you know, you could put it by a window now if you want. You could leave it anywhere really, but you have to, as soon as it starts coming up as your seeds, and they're going to come up at different times. Like, so, okay, what is the germination on this one is, oh, I cut the top off. Beagle. It doesn't even say how long it takes to germinate. The kale did though. I think the kale said like 10 to 14 days. So, you know, it could be 10 days to 2 weeks before you see your kale, but the other ones will come up soon. You need to get it by a window when they start coming up, no matter what, because what's going to start happening is they're going to start getting leggy. And that's not a good thing if you are a plant. It's a good thing if you're other things like a runner, but not if you're a plant. So a leggy plant means that the seed has come up and it's looking for light. And so it's stretching. It's like its stem is going so high and it's looking for light. And so they get too high and they're not supporting themselves. So you have to get it near light. And what I do at work mostly is when I've started seeds like that, I make sure like this day I'm doing this and then I turn it a little bit when I have my seeds and then I turn it the next day. And you just know that like they can all get evenly access to light during the day. Not all windows have ledges obviously beside them. So putting a little table beside your window that you don't mind, keeping it away from your cat. Yeah, just like making sure that it has what it needs. You will be tempted in these days to be like, you know what it needs? It needs to go outside. No, it doesn't. It does not need to go outside yet. Like if it's plus 15 out, sure, put it outside for a couple hours, but bring it out inside. But they're not as like resilient as us. We can't go from like negative 30 outside to like sitting in a hot tub. We're fine with that. Like plants, not okay with that. They need like a gradual transition. And we'll talk about that more with tomatoes, but oh man, I'm gonna run out of time. Okay, let's do that. So here they are. We can have so much to talk about. Okay, we are gonna move on to tomatoes. Hopefully now your Jiffy pots are full and you've got your water in them. We are just gonna plant them. So if you notice in the middle, there's like a little tiny hole. That is so convenient. I am gonna go to my tomato. And in this case, I gotta find my tomato. In this case, I am only gonna put one seed per tomato plant. I don't want 2 tomatoes in there. It gets a little wonky. I don't want to have to, I mean, it's not the end of the world if you put more than 1 tomato seed in it, but there's really no need. Tomatoes need a lot of space. They're heavy feeders. But here I go. Oh man, these seeds are so small. Oh, like I like to think that I'm 21 forever, but my eyes are not 21 forever. So I'm going to take a tomato seed. I'm just going to put 1 in each little Jiffy pot. And I am going to give it the like gardener's blessing of grow baby grow. Here we go. We're getting our tomatoes. Oh, I put 2 in that one. Oh, I put 2 in that one too. You know what? I really am not worried about it. And I'm going to keep them going in. Here they go. And these are already watered, right? Like there's a lot of water in these little Jiffy pots. I'm going to save the rest of these. Like if you're growing more, how many's in this? 12 tomatoes? Like you're going to be giving these away to friends. If you take care of them well, like I usually put 4 tomato plants in my garden and I'm like overwhelmed with tomatoes. I'm overwhelmed with space. And then I'm just going to like a little bit pinch the tops closed, guys. And I might even, just because I have it, but I want that seed to be covered up. So I'm going to pinch that top closed just a little bit. And I might even do a little bit of my extra from my bag because I have a little bit extra. I might sprinkle a little bit on top just to like, I don't know. I'm just tucking it in. It's probably unnecessary. And all you people who said, I've gardened for 5 years and more are like, girl, don't do that. But I'm in charge right now. I'm going to do it. So put a little bit on top. I don't have to add any more water because that's what's going on in there. I am just going to like tuck it in a little bit and make sure. And then I'm going to take my handy dandy little greenhouse lid and cap it. Ta-da. And I would put this on a sill right away. And I would do the same thing. I would turn it back and forth. When your plants start coming up in this, you're going to want to take this off. Otherwise, it's going to get too hot in there, especially by a window. You can decide. Maybe you put it on at night, but take it off during the day. Okay. Now, what's cool about a Jiffy pot is like pretend there's a little baby tomato in here. This whole thing can just go right in the garden. So I don't have to put this in anything else. I'm just going to put it right in my garden. And I'm going to talk really quickly now about transplanting tomatoes because I think this is something that people need to know. So I'm going to go over to my whiteboard. Jess is going to follow me. Here we come. How about over here? Hold on. Come in. Do you want me to move the whiteboard, you guys? Here we are. Nice one. Camera switch. I am so excited for those of you who like this whole digital media productions at Confederation College. So much talent. It's really awesome. Okay, so this is my, obviously I was not hired for my artistic abilities, but this is my tomato plant. It grew because I was a good tomato gardener, and it's got roots, and it's got all these little teeny tiny white hairs all up the stem, and even past here, white hairs all up the stem. When I transplant this tomato plant, I am going to bury it as deep as possible. And I mean it when I say this. Like, I'm going to go, so if this is my soil, I'm going to take this plant and I'm going to bury it this deep. This is the first set of leaves that it makes when it sprouts, and then it gets its true leaves after that. I'm going to put all, even if my Jiffy pot is like this, like that's my Jiffy pot now, and it's growing, all of this, so that when I plant it, only, oh my God, this is ridiculous. But here's my tomato plant, and here's all the stuff under the ground. All right, I want all that in the ground, because all those little white hairs are roots. They will turn into roots, and that will make a nice, stocky, solid tomato plant for you to grow from. So you want to get it as deep as possible. So that's when you plant it. Like, that's super important. The other thing that's important is it can't just go from your beautiful warm house outside on the same day, like you planted it. So it's like, okay, it's June 1st. You're like, this weather, like today's the day. And what you're going to do is you're going to put your tomato plants outside all day, and then you're going to bring them in at night. But you're not going to put them against your like super bright south facing white wall of your house. Like, they're going to get bleached out so fast that way. You're just going to put them out on your step, and then you're going to bring them inside. And then the next day you're going to do that again. You're going to put them outside, and then you're going to like come home and you're going to bring them inside. And then the third day you're going to do that again. You're going to put them outside, you're going to bring them inside. And on the fourth day, you're just going to put them outside and just like leave them. And on the fifth day, you're going to put it in the ground. Okay. So days 1 to 3, in and out. Days 4, out. Day 5, plant. If you don't get your tomato in the ground until June 5th, until June 10th, it's still better to harden it. This is called hardening off. It's still better to harden off than to try to rush it, and it will still grow at a good rate. You're not going to lose dates. Like, it's going to catch up, because it's going to be like, all the conditions are right. I'm just going to grow my heart out. So don't worry about that. Okay. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about, are there any questions?
Yeah, we have one quick question.
Yep.
Just how often do you water the tomatoes?
Oh, good question. That's a very good question. In the Jiffy pots, you can really get close and figure it out. So what I would do is, like, you pick them up and sort of feel like, are they still wet at the bottom? And with the tomatoes, you'll start seeing the roots. You will see white roots coming out everywhere. And I'm just gonna, if I was gonna water these, I would just put water in my middle of my trough, and it's gonna absorb it up from the bottom. I don't have to water it on top. It's gonna absorb it up from the bottom. So when you start to see the bottoms drying out a little bit, add water. Right?
Now we have another one.
Yep.
So I have a small greenhouse.
Yep.
When can I put the tomato plants in it?
Oh, that's a very good question. Much sooner than if you don't have a greenhouse. So some people with their greenhouses, like, I mean, what you actually should do is monitor the temperature in your greenhouse. What temperature is it? Like, put a thermometer in there and figure out what its nighttime and daytime is, so that you can tell. But if I had a greenhouse that I, was relatively sure that it could stay or hold some heat at night, I would put them out there like mid-May. I mean, so CPG Farm, for example, all their tomatoes are started in greenhouse, but it's heated greenhouse in the nighttime. Like, and it's, there's fans and there's all this sort of stuff. So there's lots of different options for that. Yeah, but you can definitely get it in the greenhouse sooner if our nighttime temperatures are okay and if it's staying. Another way to sort of like hold the heat in your greenhouse is to basically make a greenhouse within your greenhouse. Like, you sort of like have a small covered area in your greenhouse for the nighttime. And that will just like help it hold some heat. So as long as you can hold like an okay heat and it doesn't get too cold in there, they should be just fine, to be honest. And in that case, you know, the hardening off won't take as long too. Yeah.
On that note, we have one more question.
Yeah.
Do all veggie transplants need to be hardened off?
Yes. I'm going to say yes, because if I say no, then you're going to blame me. So I don't think it hurts to harden off your veggie transplants. When you get them from the greenhouse, they have been like coddled and cared for in this way that like none of us are possible of, because that's just not our jobs. So, you know, bring them home, put them out. It's the same with flowers too, to be honest. Like you got to give them some time to adjust. Otherwise they go into shock. And that's what you're trying to avoid. You're trying to avoid them going into shock and then browning up. What you will notice about your tomatoes also, and I just want to say this. So one, tomatoes is just an iconic vegetable that we are not letting go of in Thunder Bay. We are holding on to the tomato as like, we can grow this. And it's true that we can, but we can grow a lot of other food better. I don't know why we're always like putting the tomato up in front. But what was I going to say with that? Oh yeah, you need to feed it. Like you're going to notice like, shoot, my tomatoes are a little bit yellowing. That needs food. You can get organic fertilizer. You can add worm castings. You can get, you know, Miracle Grow just for tomatoes. Like add something. It's going to need something. And if you don't do that, they will yellow and they won't thrive. So you have to feed your tomatoes. That's what I think. Or you have to have a lot of nutrients in your garden ahead of time, but most of us don't. Eggshells, a lot of people do that for calcium. Otherwise you get like a bottom rot. It's called a blossom rot. So there's lots of different things. Like that's what Google's for, honestly. So, you know, check that out, but you do have to do that part. Okay, I want to talk about, we're coming over here, my friend Jessa. Yeah, there we are. This is the biggest thing, is what am I starting indoors? Maybe I'll move this a bit closer. Yeah, look at us. Okay. Indoors versus outdoors. So at Roots to Harvest, we do start a lot of things indoors, but we do that out of CPG Farm. We don't do that in our own greenhouse or on our own, because we want our plants, because we're trying to sell our food. But this is things that need to be started ahead of time. There's not enough time in our growing season to just put the seed in the ground and have it grow. So you have to either buy it, like this is why I said, or purchase. Like if this is like not your bag, like maybe this year you do it and next year you try again, and maybe you buy some like grow lights and like really go for it. But if it doesn't end up being your thing, then just go to the garden center, because it is their thing, and get it from them. And honestly, it's like you'll buy a flag, be like, oh, I have 10 tomato plants. You need 2 probably. You need like 1 pepper and 1 eggplant, like, you know, and I put these ones on here. I should have put stars, like, don't grow me, don't grow me, don't grow me. But you should grow them if you love them. So anyway, you want to start these things inside. Onion seeds. Onions are sort of messy bulbs sometimes. You can buy them as little teeny tiny seeds, or you can buy them as sets. They look like tiny little baby onions. Tiny little baby onions can be started directly in the ground. Oh, not that way. Hold on. I want you to see the bottom of my thing.
Just move the bags.
Where do you want me to put it?
I was gonna say, just move those bags.
Oh yeah, I'll move the bags. Always thinking. Okay. I don't know if you can see this, but onion sets you can put directly in the ground and they will grow onions for you. Onions take a long time. It's hard to find an onion 90 days or less. Starting as a set makes a big difference. Radishes, like you could put a radish in the beginning of, you know, or after May long weekend, and you'll have radishes in 3 or 4 weeks. They're the fastest. These are all things you want to put right in the ground. You can find transplants of greens, like you can buy greens and then transplant them in your garden. But these are all things you want to put in the ground directly from a seed to the thing. So all your schools, like the teachers are all like, let's start beans and peas. Like, but I'm not going to transplant that. Like, so don't start beans and peas. Start eggplants, and let's put that in the garden. But these go right in the garden. This is what I want to talk about: is beans. They want warm soil. So I'm not going to plant my beans the same day I plant my peas. I put my peas in right after May long weekend. Some people here be like, girl, I put my peas in on May 10th and it grows like a boss. And that's fine. If that's like your soil is ready to go and you want to put your peas and your spinach in, they are cold hardy, and go for it. Your beans want warm soil. If the day is warm but the soil is cold, your beans will be stunted. They won't grow as fast. You're not going to save any time by getting them in a week or 2 early. even if it's like mid-June, I'd say sometimes plant your beans. Like you need warm soil. They will grow faster and better if that's the case. So those all go in the ground. And then indoors or outdoors are your squashes and cucumbers. Some people start them indoors, but you don't start these indoors until early May. Not now. Now are these sorts of things. In 2 weeks, if you're going to do them indoors, are these things, squash and cucumbers, winter squash, summer squash. When I say winter squash, I mean like acorn or spaghetti. When I say summer squash, I mean zucchini. Like that's actually all I mean. Or like a patty pan, which is just like a funky zucchini. So, and cucumbers. But you can also just plant those in the ground, like right in the ground. So I put pumpkin seeds in my garden last year. I have the worst spot in my house, like just there's shade everywhere. And I had pumpkins everywhere, like from seed to fruit, there was pumpkins everywhere. We had like bed sheets out and fitted sheets. I think I had 4 sheets out covering them up for the frost. So in or out is that, inside, direct seed. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Any questions?
Yeah, what kind of manure is best for an outdoor garden?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Like the answer to that question is, I don't know that it matters. And I'm sure that it does. So it doesn't matter to me is what I mean. I think that there will be like, if you went on and people were like, I only use an alpine mountain sheep from New Zealand. That's the only kind of manure I use because it worked for them. Great. But honestly, you need nutrients. So whether that's compost, whether that's manure, like, so the last 2 years, like, so I have a 4x8 beds. I grow in raised beds. Not everybody does. I always put nutrients back in, and I've been using like 2 35-liter bags of like, I think it's like shrimp. It's like ocean manure. Like, so it's like shrimp and kelp and that sort of stuff. And I loved it. Last year, like I had great things. So I'm doing that again. But and I can order that right online from Superior Seasons. They delivered it to my house on Superior Seasons, like 6 bags of shrimp manure. But you know, cow, sheep, chicken, your neighbors, chickens, like that's fine. So, you know, manure, you want it to be composted. So not just like from the pile, like, you know, in your neighbor's farm, that's just like, now you put that in your garden, you can't grow in that. It needs to be composted. So like at least a year old, you want that like fresh farm manure to be at least a year old, and then it goes in. I've used like, I have a fire pit in my backyard. I've been sprinkling ashes in my garden and around my raspberry plants all winter because I'm just like, you know, it's good for something. You can get a soil test. I never have. You know, it's not important for me at my house to do a soil test. It may be important for you, like if you live on an old gas station or something, maybe that's important. But I don't think that it's super important at a garden level unless you get like totally into it. And it is kind of interesting, but you know, unless you're growing food for like market or something like that, I don't think a soil test is needed. Yeah, that's what I would say about that. I want to do another draw. Can we do that? How many people are on?
We have 27 participants.
Okay.
I think that includes us.
So let's do 26. So we're going to do this one random. So I have this really cool thing on my, you know, this thing, smartphone, and I'm going to put the number from 0 to 26 in it. And it's called a randomizer. And I'm going to randomize it. And this next prize, you can tell me what you want. And then Corey's going to count down the list and just count like whatever number we get. So I'm going to shake it. Number 11, Corey. Who's 11 on the list? He's counting. Who's it going to be?
Jamie Lee Mulligan.
Jamie Lee Mulligan. Amazing. Okay, Jamie Lee, your choices are seeds or the garden book. You just got to type it in the chat. And then we're going to do one more prize.
Seeds.
Seeds. Okay, the seeds are gone. So this one's for the book. I can't believe nobody wants this. Well, that's not true. Nobody. Everybody should want this book. It's actually very good. And Corey, can you put up the YouTube link now too?
Yeah, you bet.
Corey's going to put up a YouTube link of a whole bunch of different videos that we made last year for gardening that are free to watch anytime. So let's randomize again. Here comes number 9. Number 9. He's counting. Aaron
DeLorenzi.
DeLorenzi. Amazing. I'll drop it off when I get a coffee. Just kidding. Or maybe not kidding. Okay. So this is for you, De Lorenzi. Anyone with the name Aaron is like pretty cool in my book. So that's where that book's going to go. Jamie gets the seeds. Lori gets the compost. The other resource I wanted to show you. So for those of you who don't know me, so I'm not didn't grow up gardening. I garden because it's my job, but I also love it so much. I love it. But this is when we started Roots to Harvest over on Cornwall and Algoma, we used this book, and this guy is from Vermont, but I cannot say enough good things about how awesome this book was for us. So it's called the Vegetable Gardener's Bible. I really like it because it goes through every plant and like the different needs it has. It goes through mulching, it goes through pest control. Oh my God, he talks about cauliflower. I wonder what he says. Anyway, it's really, really great. Not all of the plants and timing is applicable to us here. Obviously, we talked about that. Like, get that through your head. When he says, May 2nd, it's like, no. Like, we're talking everything after the May long weekend. That's when you plant. Or if you're like, again, if you are Italian, like true and true, or like are summoning the Italian, like, part of yourself, I think like the first full moon in June is a thing that goes on, but I am not that patient. I never wait for the first moon in June, and I probably should, but I don't. So yeah, I think that this has been a great resource, as well as Graham's book has been a great resource. Also, all the schools that we work with, they have copies of this too. So good job, De Lorenzi, on getting that book. Questions?
Yeah,
Any?
first, just what's the name of the paperback? I'll type it in.
Of the what? The paperback?
The paperback.
Oh, it's called The Vegetable Gardener's Bible by Edward C. Smith. And he is just such a happy Vermonter. He just looks like life's working out for him. This is obviously pre-pandemic. Just kidding. Well, it is pre-pandemic, but.
And then just what's the outdoor planting date?
Yes. Okay. Outdoor planting date. So we did talk about that. Yeah. After the May long, honestly. So before the May long, like even I'm feeling it. I feel like, I bet you I can get my peas in early this year. I really am feeling that. So I might put peas and spinach or some of my greens in. I might. But it doesn't actually matter. They're going to grow anyway. As it gets warmer, they'll grow faster. So if I put them in, early May, or if I put them in, after the May long, or even in June, I'm still going to get stuff out of it. And it won't be that much sooner. Just like if your soil is cold, it will stunt their growth. So like, you don't want to go too soon. You can put a thermometer in your soil. You can get those too. Like I have like a compost thermometer, and it'll tell you. Yeah. I mean, we didn't talk about raised beds or like in the ground, if there's like whatever preference you have. Sometimes it's just aesthetics. Like I use garden beds because it looks better. Like my gardens are in my front yard. I mean, I think it looks better. This is not to say that gardens in the ground don't look beautiful too. I'm just not like super attentive sometimes. So the beds look better in my case. I don't have lots of space. But there are different things to consider, like a garden bed dries out faster, but it also warms up faster. So there are considerations with that too. Cost also is a consideration. You have to fill it. So you have to like get your soil to fill it with, and your wood, like, otherwise you just like take the sod off your lawn, add some compost, and, hope for the best. So.
And just what's the small book again with the spirals? Oh
yeah, the small book is called Gardening with Short Growing Seasons by Graham Saunders. I think Graham Saunders also does like a weather thing in the Chronicle Journal, if anybody's still reading the paper copy of those things. Anyway, he's excellent. It's like, it is really great. It goes through composting. It goes through like planting your garden. It goes through cold frames, and then it goes through like plant by plant. Garlic, we didn't talk about, kale, peas, like it's really quite good. And I would say that the dates in this one are true to our dates, because he's like actually talking about like he lives here. So like that's his context. So yeah, that's kind of all I got. So if you have questions, here's my suggestion. Watch the YouTube stuff, Google it, talk to a friend, like meet your neighbor over the fence, within Doug Ford's rules, read about it, just try it. Like, don't get intimidated. Just put seeds in the ground and try it. If that's all you do, that's good enough. Like, seeds want to grow. What I would not suggest is like, don't email me with all your gardening questions, because then you'll be like, never email me back, because I won't. I'm just not good at it. But I do like you. I just don't want to answer all your gardening questions. Because Roots to Harvest is not actually really about gardening, right? We're about people, but we really love gardening. So, so don't email me, but do check out Google or talk to your friends or come to our gardens when we're out there and talk to us there, because we cannot resist talking to people. We're the most unproductive gardeners because we're just gabbing all the time.
We do have two more
Two more questions.
quick ones.
Sure.
So Tina's just wondering who the transplant lady is to get transplants from.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Also how she orders from Roots to Harvest.
Yep. Good. Very good questions. So at rootstoharvest.org, and then you click on shop. There's an online store there. And so we fill orders all the time. You can get the compost, you can get seeds, you can get garden pruners, you can get beekeeping equipment, you can get a cool hat, whatever. Anyway, and then the woman I was talking about was Shannon Van Lent. She used to be called the Squash Queen at the market. She's out in South Gilly. She has her own greenhouse out there. So it's like, what's also good about that is like, it fills time units for kids. It's like, let's go to the country, kids, and go check out Shannon. And there's like stray kittens running around, and you can go and pick your plants. So, I mean, there's lots of garden centers. If you don't want to go out there, like, honestly, you can go to George's, you can go to Walmart, you can go to Superstore. Like, there's a million places that are growing. But Shannon, she's just lovely. So it's just like really nice to buy from her.
And then the final one is just, what was our zone again?
So our zone is 2B or 3C. No, 3A. 2B or 3A. It's like, depends how far you are from the lake. So if you're closer to the lake, you're a little bit cooler. And if you're like out at Baloo's or like Slate River, like, you know that if you're like here in town, you're like, oh, it's like, then I'm gonna put on my sweater. Then you go to Baloo's and it's like, crap, I wish I wore a tank top. Like, it, the same day, different climate. So it just sort of depends. Or if you're on the south side of town, it's like, what? The lilacs are out, and it's like on our side of town, it's like a blizzard. So north side, south side is also, it really depends. And then there's all these little microclimates. And again, like, you walk down Macker Street and all the Italians living there, they know that like, this part of my house, this is where I put my tomatoes, because that's where they grow big. You just got to look for those. So anyway, if you want good gardening advice, walk the back lanes, find a house that has those big homemade, not homemade, but like tree poles, like they're from a tree, and talk to that person, because they know what they're doing for real. They really for real do. So that's what I got. That's all I got. I am so like, happy Saturday. I know that the world is like super weird right now. And yeah, and I'm glad that we can still do this, even though I can't see you. I'm glad that you can see my chin and I can see yours. And I hope you have a great season of growing or not growing or eating or just being outside. Thanks. And thanks huge to this crew here from the college, from the digital media productions at Confederation College. You guys nailed it. So awesome. So big round of applause for those guys too. All right. Ciao.